Hello and welcome back to Spill the Popcorn. I'm Alec,
I'm Cameron.
and today we're going to be talking about Lightyear. First of all, I was super excited going into this movie because I thought the trailer was very well made, and it became a bit of a joke that I would just start showing people the Lightyear trailer because I was so impressed with it. And my first impression after coming out was that there were some moments that were almost cool that I think could have been, like they were like a rough draft. If they tried one more time, they could have been like super cool. I think some of the characters were unnecessary. Some of the pacing was funny. They did a good job with the trailer, and they did a good job with the promo. But I guess at the end of the day, the movie did almost kind of seem like a marketing ploy in and of itself.
It's kind of like a cash grab.
Yeah, but it didn't have to be. You know what I mean? Like, if they just tried a little harder, I think they kind of knew that people would go see it regardless, especially if they made cool trailers. At the end of the second act, it almost felt like the end of the third act, but there wasn't any payoff. So I remember being confused because the pacing was it just threw me off because it's one of those stories where it's not like A leads to B leads to C like that. It was more like
A to B, and we got to fill that space with
Yes.
as much as we can.
Yes. Spoilers obviously, but like the goal they lay out pretty early: blow up the Zerg ship, save the city.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're like, oh, but we need a spaceship. Oh, the spaceship crashed. Oh, and it's like, okay, surely there was something you could have done between need to get to the Zerg ship and get to the Zerg ship that wasn't just
Someone made a mistake, and now we need to remedy that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, I thought the pacing was a little funny, and that threw me off. Basically, everybody but Hawthorne's daughter and Buzz
Mm-hmm.
is just like
Filler, basically.
yeah, they serve no purpose. They had this super surface level contribution to the end. They just had to block the corridor. They
And
served
that
no
was just to
purpose.
occupy screen time as well. It's like they didn't need
Yeah,
that.
it filled screen time. I don't remember their names. I remembered Hawthorne because I thought Buzz. Honestly, I thought he was written pretty well. I thought Hawthorne was written pretty well.
I do not disagree with what you just said. In fact, I would take it a little bit farther and say I don't even think the Buzz character was all that well written. He had an arc, which is more than can be said about pretty much every other character in the film, right? But he kind of had you because he was a protagonist. If he didn't, then there wouldn't even be a movie, right? All of the development on the part of Buzz's character was pretty surface level, and it seemed like it was just there so that there could be a movie. It seems like everything, actually, to expand upon that, everything in the movie was just there so that there could be a Buzz Lightyear movie. It does not seem like there was a whole lot of thought or care put into the actual, details or into the actual nuances of the story.
So I know I've said a couple things about the movie that I didn't like. Didn't like the side characters. Wasn't a huge fan of the pacing. I also didn't think there was enough Zerg. I just it always kind of bothers me when the villain has 30 seconds of screen time. I will say there were a notable amount of things that I did like.
Okay.
I will say the first, let's call it 20 minutes of the movie, I didn't think was perfect, but I thought was going in a surprisingly good direction. Yeah, like I really liked, the music. First of all, like that scene where they're like, "This is Andy's favorite movie." I was like, "That's a pretty hype way to start a movie," with the music building up. And I thought it was. I really liked the fact that Buzz had the guilt factor driving him, that he marooned everybody on the planet, and he just won't quit even though he's sacrificing like his relationships with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the time jumps were done pretty well, and when he does the to infinity and beyond with old Alicia, I almost got choked up because I thought it was well done.
Yeah, that part almost it seemed like they were kind of going for something similar to the montage at the beginning of Up. Like, no, it was not the
Yes.
same kind of thing, but it reminded me of that.
Yes.
Especially since you knew Alicia was going to be dead at the end of it.
Yeah. I thought that was very well done.
I definitely thought the beginning of the movie was the strongest part. Like, the first act, maybe not even the entirety of the first act, but like you said, the first, 15, 20 minutes I thought were definitely the strongest 15 or 20 minutes of the movie. I did, even though I liked the purpose that time jump montage ultimately served, it did feel funny that something like that was happening at the beginning of the film. It almost seemed like they were cramming a lot of stuff into the first act so that they could set up the rest of the movie.
Yeah, that's the pacing thing I was saying. Like,
Yeah.
it was going in such a clear direction. I even thought that in the movie. I'm like, okay, while I did like it, I just said I liked it. I did think, okay, maybe there's some explanation we're missing. Like, I feel like we could have used a scene explaining that it's Alicia who's letting Buzz go on, because he just kind of has complete authority over whether he goes on the mission or not. And I thought, I just assumed it was because Alicia was like, yes, Buzz wants this. Buzz wants to be a star, a space ranger again. And she kept saying, let him do it. Because I just assumed that, but I thought they could have used that scene because that seemed to be the nature of their relationship.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of gaps they could have filled in there that would have added some substance to the story, I think.
Or at least more structure.
Yeah.
It just seemed like the plot was there, but I had to guess why this happened when I think it would have behooved the story to not make me guess and to really hammer in, this is why this is happening, such as that Alicia example. That's the one I could think of off the top of my head. I'll use that as a segue into saying the other thing I liked about the movie, I said a little bit earlier, was Buzz's arc. So first of all, I will make a minor concession, or actually a pretty big concession, in that I called Zurg being old Buzz within 30 seconds of him being on screen. I will say, I remember thinking, when they did the Zurg reveal, one, I was excited to see a Darth Vader-esque Zurg, where it's just big scary villain, because they kind of hyped him up to be big scary villain, and then they removed the hype by making him just decrepit dude in a suit. One, two, I remember thinking, as my theory was proven right, I've seen this movie before, and I remembered it right before we started filming. It's the exact plot to the second Lego movie, when Emmett meets Rex Dangervest, and Rex Dangervest turns out to be a villain, who then also turns out to be Emmett from the future.
That definitely was not an original storyline, and I was hoping for some of the same things you were hoping for. It sounds like, especially after I saw the trailer, I really liked the character design, on a visual level, and I thought, well, surely the actual character within the movie will, be appropriately,
Badass.
not what he was. Yeah, I was hoping for more than they delivered. It seemed like if I were making a Buzz Lightyear movie, I would put a lot of emphasis on both Buzz and Zurg.
I did also think, so while I did like the core concept of it's man versus self, right? Really, this is Buzz versus Buzz trying to figure out what he wants, and putting other people over himself instead of saying it's for other people but doing it for himself. That was the part I liked. The part I didn't like was that it seemed like Buzz's motivation changed from guilt to a pride thing. So what was Zurg's motivation? Was Zurg's motivation, we wasted Alicia's life? Which he didn't know, because this Buzz figured that out through Izzy, Alicia's daughter.
I think Zurg's primary motivation had to do more with pride than it did with the other. Because that's the villainous side of, protagonist Buzz's motivation, right?
So he became obsessed over his guilt around wasting Alicia's life. And then at the end, he's like, oh, but it wasn't really about Alicia's life. It was about me wanting to matter again. Which I guess, he's the villain, but I feel like that removes a little bit of complexity.
I agree.
From the villain.
I think they also eschewed a little bit of nuance, I could say, by giving Buzz a change of heart as quickly as they did. As soon as he realized that Zurg was the villain, he was like, okay, all of my my internal conflict is resolved. I'm now solely dedicated to besting the
Stopping
physical
Zurg.
conflict. Yeah. Obviously, it was going to devolve into physical conflict at some point, and that is how the movie was going to end. But I think they could have spent a little bit more time if they had actually cared about the story and not just having a cookie-cutter narrative. I think they could have spent a little bit more time with the conflict within Buzz before they'd moved on to the conflict between Buzz and Zurg. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so that just goes back to you had plenty of time in Act 2 to
Yeah,
make
and they
Act
just
3
didn't
matter
use it.
more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that. Another concession, this is a bit of a non sequitur, but I remember when I watched the trailers, the socks parts would always make me cringe.
Mhm.
Like when, the whale noise at the end, I'm like, all right, like, that's just not my humor. It applies
Kinda
to kids,
juvenile,
but
yeah.
yeah. But I will say, I did end up liking Socks by the end of the movie.
I did too, yeah.
I thought he was legitimately funny and a good addition to the story. For final reviews, if you had to give it a grade on visuals, what would you give it?
I thought the animation was. There was never a dull moment, animation wise, cinematography wise. On a visual level, I think it was very impressive throughout. And they clearly spent a lot of time and money, and they put a lot of effort into the visual element of the movie, and I think it paid off 100%. So I would give it an S in the visual category.
I really want to give it an S rating as well, just because I agree with everything you said. And it was also the first animated movie made for IMAX. So
Specifically for IMAX.
yeah. So they clearly wanted to make it spectacular. They did a great job with the animation. The only thing that makes me not want to give it an S is because Buzz's money shot with the jetpack didn't pay off. But I think that's just more of like a me thing, and I can't fault the rest of the movie for that one thing. Visually, I'll also give it an S rating. And if I had to rate it on acting, I also think the voice acting was very good throughout. I thought Chris Evans did a good job with Buzz. I really liked Izzy actually.
Keke Palmer, I thought, was one of the stronger voice actors.
Yeah, she was super believable the whole time and
Charismatic. I don't know if that can be said about pretty much any of the others. I thought she was charismatic.
yeah, I think Keke Palmer did fantastic and might have even added nuance to the character that the writing may have left out.
Mhm.
I thought Taika Waititi was funny. And Socks, I feel like, was a bit of a sleeper hit
Yeah.
because
Dark Horse. Voice
yeah,
acting stand out.
yeah, because I don't think Socks would have been funny if the voice acting was exclusively what made Socks funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I would also give acting. I think I would give acting an S because it's an animated movie. It's voice acting. I think they did a good job.
I think with the exception of Keke Palmer, the voice actors did not add as much to the characters as they could have, especially given how weak the script was. I do agree that it was fine throughout, and like I said, Keke Palmer was a standout. I think there were a couple of moments, and I don't think this is. It's hard to fault the actors for this because a lot of the dialogue in the movie was just. There were a ton of throwaway lines that were super corny and kind of made me roll my eyes a little bit. It made me cringe. With the exception of those moments, which there were a few of, but it wasn't too distracting. I think the voice acting was decent. It could have been better, but it's hard to complain because it wasn't super distracting most of the time. I'd have to give voice acting a high B or a low A.
Okay, so I just gave 2 S's for visual and acting, but I don't think this was like an S movie.
No, we've already talked a lot about the narrative, so without going into even further detail, because I'd just be repeating myself, I would give the narrative a solid, probably C-. I don't know if it was bad enough to deserve an F, even though I really did not enjoy it and it did not meet my expectations at all. I don't think it's any worse than a C. It's definitely not any better than a C, but I don't know if I'd say it's any worse. So I'll give it a solid C, maybe C-.
Yeah, I think I'm in the C range as well, just based on what I already said. Kind of some of the repetitive elements, the funny pacing, the undeveloped characters. and my own personal qualms with Buzz's kind of mixed arc.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I would give it a C as well, and because I also rate narrative higher than I would visuals and acting, especially for an animated movie where you're just voice acting.
Yeah.
I think overall I would give this like a high C.
Yes, I definitely, even though I absolutely appreciate the effort and the thought that went into the visual elements of this movie, and I know the actors did a decent job, if not a good job, for the most part at least. And I want to pay due respect to everyone involved in those processes. I was really, really disappointed with the movie on a narrative level, and I don't think the parts that worked compensated for the shortcomings on the script's part. So I'd have to give the movie, on a holistic level, not even a high C, but just a straight up C.
At the end of the day, I did enjoy the movie, even if I had my qualms with it.
I enjoyed it too. I mean, after I adjusted my expectations in accordance with what I'd seen from the movie, I was able to allow myself to have a good time and kind of overlook some of the stuff that obviously that would have bothered me if my expectations had remained high.
Yeah.
So yeah, say what you want to say, I guess, about the movie. I'll probably agree with you, but I did end up enjoying it.
All right. Thank you for watching. Again, I'm Alec.
I'm Cameron.
And this was our review for Lightyear for Spill the Popcorn.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and maybe leave some review recommendations for us in the comments. I'll see you next time.